Hello everybody. So I've heard a lot of questions asking me about where should you be spending your Pinnacle energy, and it should be a fairly easy thing for people to figure out. However, there still are a couple of tips that you may not know on how you can get more out of your Pinnacle energy for the purposes of increasing your character's power. So obviously the primary thing that you're going to want to be spending your Pinnacle energy on is character upgrades. What you're going to want to do is search for what parts of your character could still be upgraded. So for instance, my wolf pack is only enhancement level 9. I do have a lot of selector boxes, but I do like to save them for later because I will wind up having to spend more Pinnacle energy later in order to get more Luminite in order to level up my other characters' weapons. So if you're leveling up multiple characters at a time, something that you may want to do is add up the total amount of resources that you would need, and then you would subtract from the amount of resources that you would have. So for instance, I have 3 of this dense Luminite and I have 11 of this mythic infusion cores. Now, if I went to another character that I may want to level, for instance, Yolder, I would also need another 25 Luminite and another 45 cores. However, I would also need another 15 Luminite, but this time Impact, and another 20 Impact cores. So one deal is that you can go into Haven Ops or Gauntlet Ops, and then you can play through it, getting your materials from it, and obviously since you'll be getting random materials for your level ups with a much smaller amount of choice chests, any of those random materials can be used up first on the weapons that you're getting them for, and then you can make up the difference with any of the choice chests that you already have or that you will obtain. And you can actually do this for every single level up resource in the game. So for instance, if you need crackling sheaths, you will also be getting burning and void sheaths regardless of the fact that you're doing it on arc. So you can focus on getting the materials that you need for a character and then making up the difference with the selector boxes. And you can also do this with your fruits. So for instance, I only have 5 void fruits, and if I wanted to get these 2 nodes, I'd need a lot more. But I have significantly more solar and arc fruits as well. So that means if I needed to do this right now, I could use some of the selector boxes because I have a surplus of the other 2 resources. Which of course, since my 2 solar characters that I'm planning on using are at their maximum weapon mastery, I wouldn't need any more solar fruits. So that means any solar fruits that I would get from here on out would then essentially be allowed to be used on any of my characters. So for the level up materials, you will be going to Haven Ops and either the Strike playlist or the Gauntlet playlist, and specifically the Gauntlet Blitz playlist in order to get your weapon level up materials. And this also includes weapon mods, and outside of the master difficulty, the exotic mods that you obtain will be entirely random. However, the mythic mods will be based on the type of activity. That you're completing. So the mod loot pool for Gauntlet Ops is going to be Impact and Blast weapons, and the loot pool for Strike Ops is going to be Rapid Fire weapons and Piercing weapons. And this goes for the Master Challenge rewards as well. So even though I do have the chance to get this choice bundle, I also have the chance to get the choice bundle for the spread weapons and the choice bundle for the impact weapons for Gauntlet Blitz, and the other 2 categories for the strike that's featured here. I know the challenger keys aren't technically Pinnacle energy, but they are still a limited resource that you will have to spend wisely. For your elemental fruits, you're obviously going to be looking at the realms of the 9. And this will also be giving you better chances for artifacts, as well as the artifact refactoring material, which will be very valuable for your artifacts. Beyond that, Morgryn's Prey if you need a large surplus of the topological Astiny. This is going to be the only regular source of it outside of Dismantling Mythic Moth. Now, one big tip to spending your Pinnacle energy more efficiently for these activities is to use the Iron Commander. You can see here that if my character's individual power is over 44k, I will get the abundant rewards. However, you will not want to be using your Iron Commander tokens on Legacy, because if we do the reward preview, the abundant rewards are barely any more than the basic rewards. You have the opportunity to be getting 1 more sheath than usual. However, it's only a chance and not a guarantee. However, if we look at the Gauntlet Blitz, we can see that we will at the very least be getting 1 more guaranteed Luminite and have a much larger pool of potential chance increases for our other level up materials. And of course, we will also be getting more chances for mods, more chances for exotic weapons, but when it comes to exotic weapons and mythic weapons, you can farm those infinitely for free. So we are really only looking for gaining extra raw materials. And when we're talking about extra raw materials, obviously Morgan's Prey is going to be the best returns for using this increase because it's guaranteed 2 extra topological astenine for this activity. So what this means is that if you need any of these resources, then because you have a limited amount of Iron Commander tokens you can pull per day, the priority is going to be mod components if you need them, then weapon materials, and finally the character rank up materials in Legacy. Now I will say this priority order is only for specifically using the tokens. You should always be looking at your characters and seeing what upgrades they need. Now, beyond that, we do have some weekly boosts that you can make use of that will actually get you some significant increases to your rewards and your materials gained over the regular completions. Starting off, we have Shifting Gates. As you can see here, Pinnacle Claims will give you 25 translation credits. And if we go to the exchange, you can see we have a wide selection of different choice chests. Now, as you may remember when we were talking about the Gauntlet Ops and Strike Ops, the Luminites that we would receive from there would be somewhere around like the 5 to 6 range, with only one of them being a choice chest. However, with one singular claim in Shifting Gates, you'll be able to get 10 choice chests with 5 translation credits to spare to use for other things. With Singularity Chaos, you get a guarantee of 3 random fruits per 10 Pinnacle Energy. So with 1 Pinnacle Energy claim, you can get 8 fruits with 10 to spare, so that means with 2 claims, you'd be able to get 24 fruits, which, if all of that Pinnacle Energy was spent in Singularity Chaos, you would have only received 12, and they would have been random. Beyond that, you also have the Undefined Incandescent Sheaths, and as you can see, it's only an exchange of 8. So 1 Pinnacle Energy claim would allow you to get 3 of these, which would be 15, which is more than double what you would earn from a single Pinnacle claim in Legacy. So if you are looking for raw materials, and especially raw materials of a choice, you should be spending your Pinnacle Energy in Shifting Gates to get these translation credits, so you can get as many of these choice chests as you can. This is going to be the best exchange for raw upgrade materials, at least when it comes to the ones listed here, the fruits, the sheaths, and the infusion cores. Now, I will state, you will not want to spend on anything else here. Everything else aside from these 4 items is a complete waste because you will be able to farm these infinitely, or you'll be able to regularly earn them by just completing activities. Beyond that, we have our weekly reward claims in the Legendary campaign, which gives you a much higher chance of the superposed photons, and you'll also get a larger sum of contextual datasets and exotic weapon infusion cores. You should be spending at least 30 Pinnacle Energy to get these claims per week, and then beyond that, you will get diminishing returns, and because of the diminished rewards, I would recommend that you hold off as much as possible on grinding these out, at least until you've upgraded the majority of your other items on your character aside from your exotic. When the only thing that's really left, or the main thing that's left lacking, is your exotic, then you may want to spend regular Pinnacle claims to get more of these cores. Beyond that, obviously, I mentioned the challenge keys, which you do earn on a weekly basis. However, one particular Pinnacle claim that you will be getting per week is going to be for the raid. Now, what's important is that you will get a much higher chance to earn an exotic right here. 5 times the chance, with a stacking chance to get a guaranteed copy of the encounter's exotic. And it's not only important for earning the initial copy of the exotic, but it's also important for earning additional copies of the exotic, because you will need more in order to max it out. It will additionally give you Ascension Cells, which I believe this is the only regular source of getting these Ascension Cells. However, something to note is that once you are out of your weekly reward claims, you should stop spending your Pinnacle Energy on the raid encounters if you complete any extra during the week. The reason why is that the only thing that you're earning is going to be more mythics from the loot pool, a smaller chance of getting mythic mods, compared to the Strike playlist, 0 chance of getting exotic mods, and 0 weapon infusion cores. What this means is that beyond the weekly claims of the raid, you are going negative if you're spending any Pinnacle energy on here, okay? Remember that this game is going to be a marathon and not a sprint. Just because you don't have the exotic that you want this week does not mean that you should be spending your Pinnacles on here for a slightly boosted chance at getting the exotic. You should just wait for the weekly reset, and even if you already have all the exotics and you're just looking for upgrades, I definitely do recommend getting the copies through the raid, because if we look at the synthesized menu, the Gauntlet Onslaught Selector engram is double the cost of the regular Selector engram. So you'll essentially be spending 2 exotics worth of materials on here when you could just simply use your weekly claims on the raid and give yourself a really, really good chance of obtaining them. Now, I believe that really covers all of the places that you would spend your Pinnacle energy on. To reiterate, use your Iron Commander tokens every single day in order to get boosted rewards. And for the most part, you are going to be trying to find the cheapest upgrades for your characters that will give you the highest boosts to your power and your character's strength. So the specific activities that you're going to want to spend your Pinnacle energy on are going to change on an individual basis. However, I do believe that the guidance that I was able to give here may have shed some light on some certain things, like the Shifting Gates Exchange Shop, which you may have been neglecting. That's all I have for this video. If you're enjoying my coverage of Destiny Rising and would like to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel to keep up to date on everything to do with this game. Only about 20% of the viewers of my videos are subscribed, so don't limit yourself to only finding me through the algorithm, and press that button to view every single guide and piece of news that will be coming in Destiny Rising in the short future. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.